Hello, everybody, and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Chris.
All night I am awake in the rotting prison of my body.
We got Vince.
I am not the crossbow killer.
And I'm Kia. Hi, welcome to the show. What is it, the crossbow killer? Is this a Huntress reference?
Yeah, it's a Huntress. The Birds
Okay,
of Prey.
all right.
Everybody wants to call her the crossbow killer, and she's like, I'm not the crossbow killer. I'm the Huntress.
And Harley Quinn.
It's a great movie.
I see.
She's great in that movie.
Okay, well, today we are reading some Swamp Thing. It's been a while since we read Swamp Thing. When was the last time we read...
Episode 164 last year, I think October-ish. We were doing some spooky time things, and we were going to hold this out for October this year, but the Sandman show came out, and boy howdy, does it feel like Swamp Thing, or Swamp Thing feels like Sandman. I think Sandman
Something like
predates
that.
Swamp Thing predates Sandman this run, so I'm going to say the former.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we've got,
the first like 3 years of Sandman owes a lot to Swamp Thing.
I read these issues, and we'll get to them. I was telling Kimberly, I'm like, so there's this issue where this woman, she's like, oh, I'm about to have my period, and then she turns into a werewolf, and then Swamp Thing's like, I guess I should do something about that. And you could easily just sub in Sandman from the Netflix shows, like, I guess I should do something about this, and then he does, and calls it a day. It's like not has anything to do, fuck all to do with Swamp Thing for 20 pages. And that's very much Sandman from my experience. So,
Yep.
And
we have
this is good.
We have John Constantine in the show as well.
Yes.
And he makes his first appearance like ever in anything in these comics. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay,
kind of not a big deal, but also at the same time, I'm like, oh shit, like I already like Constantine, like one issue in. So.
Yeah, so I don't think we've said which issues we're actually reading. So this is Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing, which covers issues. This is volume 3 of his run on Swamp Thing, which is 35 through 42. Does this trade have a name? What was this called?
I think it was just like the Saga of the Swamp Thing.
No, just book 3.
Book 3. I mean, it's now been collected in like different editions, but there are. I mean, it's all on DC Infinite, but I think there's 6 volumes total, and they're all about like 8 to 10 issues. This is our 3rd one.
I have a feeling this might be like the book we keep coming back to the most and like finish.
I know we've been talking about doing Captain America by Brubaker, and we've done like
we
3 or
will
4 episodes.
Finish it.
And Age of Apocalypse, but this one, I think like, fuck, this was good.
That's good. And before we get too far, we're also for our long read, we're doing something kind of weird, something different. We're just doing a bunch of DC multiverse stories, like stories about Earth 2 and eventually some crossover stories with Earth 1. So later on, we're reading the origin of the Huntress in DC Superstars number 17. We'll get to that though. So let's stick with Swamp Thing for right now. Where are we with Swamp Thing? So Swamp Thing is a guy named Alec. He is married to Abby. She has white hair.
Okay, none of this is correct.
Yeah.
Wait.
One, he's a dude who thinks he was a human. We learned that.
Sure.
In the first
Alec is dead.
Alec
is dead.
It's just
That's
a plant that thinks he is. And then he's not married to Abby because is Abby's husband still alive at this point? I think we saw him once in this run, right?
He is in a coma because he got possessed by like a demon monster thing in the last arc. That created all the little zombie people, all the serial killers. And I guess when they defeated him, he's in a coma. So later when somebody's like, you must be all upset your husband's a vegetable. And she's like, oh, whoa, what?
Whoa, what? That has a double meaning. That's pretty good. That's a really good double meaning. Yeah, but she, for all intents and purposes, this plant creature that thinks its name is Alec and Abby, they are in love. And
yes. The last issue we read, they sort of have sex. He doesn't have a penis, so he had to like give her a fruit, and it was a whole thing.
The whole thing.
They got high, and they were cool psychedelic art. I recall that.
Yeah.
They do have a very pure love, though, I will say. It's some of the purest love I've seen. It seems genuine. I think they're into each other. It's pretty good for them. Pretty good. I think, is there anything else we have to say before we just jump right into it?
No, it's just the spooky story times.
Yeah, spooky story time. So Swamp Thing number 35 opens with them just kind of hanging out. He's sitting with his lover. I think she's like asleep, and we have a lot of newspaper imagery coming up in this story here. We cut to like this scene with a homeless guy and this other weird guy. This is Nuke Face, okay? They don't name him yet, but it's like he's the weird weirdo of the week. What do they call it? Freak of the week.
Yeah, nothing to do with Nuke from Captain America, which I thought we were gonna have, but that's not the case.
Different guy. This is Nuke Face. He keeps calling this guy Ed. His name's not Ed. His name is Bob, but he keeps calling him Ed. Then he like sets some papers on fire or something like that. I don't know. He's like, no, my name's Bob. Bob runs out of booze, so he gives him like, hey, you can have some of my drink, and he just gulps this thing down, like pours it cartoon style all down his throat. And he's like getting poisoned, and he's like foaming at the mouth, and he's all messed up. Looks like a zombie. Very creepy. Some great art here. Did we mention the artist Stephen Bissett? I think he's the artist for most of
Stephen Bissett, John Totleben. There's a few other people that come in.
A few other people who come in, but Stephen Bissett's the main artist.
Misses at least one issue, but yeah.
Yeah. But I really like the weird imagery, and then you see this dude who's just got like a weird rotting face. He's rambling about Blossomville, Pennsylvania, where he came from. What's going on over there? Then we cut to this couple named Treasure and Wallace. They're looking over like an abandoned nuclear factory of some sort. And it sounds like kind of what I'm picking up from their conversation is that maybe this place was like running tests on homeless folks or something like that, and Wallace kind of feels guilty about it, right?
Well, they were dumping this nuclear radiation or whatever, but they're like, but the homeless people kept like getting into there. I guess they didn't realize that homeless people lived in the area they were dumping.
Yeah, and they were getting all messed up from it.
Yeah, it's a dead mining town kind of thing.
Kind
of situation. I will say that like in all of these stories, I have a hard time because there always seems like there's a bunch of like kind of yuppie-esque couples in the Swamp Thing run that I'm like, have we seen these two people before? And I figured out we have not. But there's always like a guy and girl couple that are just kind of like interlopers in every story, and they all kind of are like, fairly affluent, and so I get them very much confused between these.
Yeah.
I mean, Alan Moore just puts like Americans in like, every story, and you're like, oh, these guys.
They all look the same to me.
There's a lot of randos for sure popping up all over the place. But then they overhear some kids talking about something about like one of the old men who vanished, and like, oh yeah, he was out on a bender with Nuke Face. And I was like, how does that guy know that name? Now, meanwhile, Nuke Face.
My mom's name was also Nuke Face.
How do you know that name?
Meanwhile, Nuke Face is talking things out with Bob. Bob is just like sitting there, silent and practically dead. I think maybe he's like technically still alive.
Yeah, his like teeth have fallen out. He's not doing well.
He's not doing well. And he like pauses every once in a while for like a response, and he's like, "No, that's silly. It's nothing like that." He's just talking to himself. This crazy guy. He says, Ed. He keeps calling everybody Ed. He says Ed was some inspector who poured cement all over his stash. There's a lot of little nuggets of stuff that I feel like we never really get to here. Then we get Swamp Thing. He's like in a dream, and he's back at that nuclear power plant, and he's like seeing everything. And some guys now are like dumping literal barrels of toxic waste into the water. I think this is back to the present, right? This does a little bit of time hopping, so I think we're still in the present. Yeah, because then they're making fun of that nerd Wallace and his girlfriend. They call her his fat girlfriend Treasure, who's always talking about Jesus. She's just pregnant, but they call her fat.
And she's not even that big.
She's really not. But these guys suck. Swamp Thing is like, he's all upset about nature because they're dumping. Nuke Face is also looking for his stash, which is these barrels they're dumping under the water. And so Nuke Face and Swamp Thing are both there, like, about these barrels, and they're like, "Hey, we should team up. We're looking for the same thing, man." And he like goes to hug Swamp Thing or something, or like pat him on the chest, and he starts to burn Swamp Thing, and he's like, "Oh man, you're doing real bad. Let me give you some of my drink," and he pours it down Swamp Thing's throat, and yeah, it's having the same effect on Swamp Thing as it had on that other guy, and he is not doing well. I feel like there was a lot more that happened in this first issue. A lot of good imagery about, like, just the waste and everything, but not a lot that I wrote down. I think we're ready to go on.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to think that we're better off in our toxic, dumping and bad, environmentalism than 35 years ago, and we're not really. But at the same time, like I do like that, like Swamp Thing is like, this is the shit that's going on. Like this is how he's like having like spooky stories, and like a guy that's like, permeating like through radiation poisoning, and that's like causing all sorts of other like body horror and stuff. I think it's a good take for a plant themed hero. That also he's like being melted by this radiation. I think that's a fun imagery.
Yeah, I don't know if it's I mean, I guess I'll save it a little bit for the end of this two-parter, but it's a little bit like this could be a good Captain Planet episode, but I think it's kind of a weak Swamp Thing story.
Yeah, like, I don't disagree.
Because Nukeface isn't actually bad, like, and they don't actually do anything about anything. Like, it's just he's so out of it because he's been like, irradiated. I guess he's basically a ghoul from Fallout now, and so he like drinks toxic waste. I guess.
Yeah. That sounds like a Captain Planet episode. You're like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's literally like the Captain Planet villain like spits tobacco in his face, and he's like, "No."
I feel like this is kind of like the catalyst for the Constantine stuff that's coming in a little bit later, especially the first scene we're coming into in Swamp Thing number 36, beginning of the next issue. Swamp Thing is dying.
I love the cover of this issue too. Great cover.
I mean, really, all these covers, just the art is so excellent. I will say, like, I don't like Stephen Bissett's faces. I think maybe we've talked about this before. I feel like he draws humans terribly, but everything else looks fantastic.
He definitely comes from a horror school. Like, he can't make someone not look sinister.
Yeah.
Even Abby, sometimes you're like, what is she playing?
Like, yeah, she looks evil.
Maybe that's the curly white hair is not helping her look like kind of evil.
Yeah. So he is like decaying, and he's describing how it feels like his arm falls off, then his legs fall off, and he can feel everything withering away. And he calls out to Abby, and Abby comes to him, and he's still alive, but he says, "Don't get closer," and then he dies. Oh no. So we jump around to a whole bunch of other folks here. The townsfolk are all talking about how they found Bob dead. Wallace Monroe. Wallace is slowly losing his mind over all this stuff. Like, definitely the guilt, but also, like, he sees the cops questioning this old woman about, like, stabbing a hobo or something. Then some kids are playing Nukeface, and, like, they got a big old mask on. They're like, "I'm Nukeface." And he yells at these kids, like, "Damn kids, stop playing Nukeface." And he thinks he's been followed from Pennsylvania. Which also, okay. Was this plant in Pennsylvania? But I feel like they were also dumping toxic waste here in Louisiana. Where
they had to move to a new location.
Yes, they are now dumping it in Louisiana, which seems like kind of a haul. Like, you could just go to like West Virginia or something.
That's a long way to go to dump some toxic waste. But okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, just put it on a boat and send it to China.
So Wallace is like, all right, I need to go out in the swamp and look for stuff. It's not really clear what he's doing, but he's out there for hours, and he gets lost. And finally, he gets back to, like, their hotel room or wherever they're at, and Treasure has left him a note about buying milk and that he should stay put when he gets back.
Gosh, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this, like, writing notes to your partner to be like, where I'm at.
Notes.
Because we used to always do that with my parents and stuff. Like, went out to Dairy Queen,
Yep.
8:30.
That's why you always leave a note.
Yeah. If you get home, stay put, because I can't get a hold of you otherwise. I can't say, like, where the fuck are you?
But he does not stay put. He goes to the police, raving about monsters and nuclear waste. Eventually, they go out into the woods, and they find Treasure, who tells him where she's been. And he's like, "Oh, my God. You were there? I can't look at you anymore." And he, like, needs to get away from her.
Yeah, because she's like, "Oh, I found a strange man, but I like gave him a blanket and like laid down over by him, to make sure he was okay." And he's like, "No."
And like we don't learn this yet at this point in the story. So at first I'm just like, okay, this is something involved with the nuclear stuff, and he's just like not into it. Then we get to all the kids hanging out with each other. One of them, the main one, was named Billy Hatcher. Isn't there a video game, Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg?
Fucking A, I'm wearing a Billy Hatcher shirt right now.
What?
Billy Hatcher and the Angry Egg. It's a GameCube game where you you roll around an egg until it hatches. It's from the creator. I think it's from like the guy who created Sonic the Hedgehog. It's part of that GameCube era where you just roll balls around like a Super Monkey Ball. I've been trying to get Mike on Games My Mom Found to cover it because it's stupid. But I am wearing a Billy Hatcher shirt.
Wow.
Do you think it's based on this story?
I was thinking that. I got it because today is my 2-year anniversary of me getting my chickens for the first time, so I wore a Billy Hatcher shirt. But
nice,
yeah, I did think
nice.
that was weird. There's a kid named Billy Hatcher here. Yeah, I bet it's an homage. The Sonic creator. He's like, I fucking love Swamp Thing number 36. Alan Moore is so good.
This kid never comes up again. I don't know why they bothered to name him. Yeah, they mention him at some point. The landlord, there's a landlord of this guy named Bob who died, and she identifies the body. She's like crying. She blames it on that guy from Pennsylvania. He's always making trouble. But they've got Bob like zipped up in a bag because he's contaminated, maybe. And she's like, no, he was fine. He never did anything. We have Treasure's story now of when she went out looking for Wallace. She found Nukeface, just like Chris was saying. She found Nukeface sleeping on the ground. He looked cold, so she did what Jesus would do, and she covered him with her coat and laid next to him all night. Cool. And then she said, like, yeah, and he was glowing too. Weird, huh? Yeah, that's weird, Treasure. You probably shouldn't have laid down next to him. You're pregnant. Billy Hatcher now talking to the other kids about how he ran into the guy, and he just like instantly thought of the name Nukeface. It just like popped into his head, and he got the idea to make the mask. Isn't that cool? Hey, I heard Treasure's in the hospital now. I don't know why everybody knows about this couple from Pennsylvania and all their details and goings on, but she's like distraught and in the hospital because Wallace doesn't love her anymore. We get Abby's story. She was hanging out with her kid, not her kid, like her nephew or something, Tommy.
No, she works at that
right.
autistic and otherwise troubled kid
Yes.
institute.
And Tommy has drawn a nice picture, and she's looking at the picture with him, just doing regular life stuff. And then she sees a vision of decaying Swamp Thing like flash into her head. I guess Swamp Thing was trying to call out to her, and she's like, oh. And Tommy starts crying because he thinks that that's how Abby's reacting to his picture, and he's just fucking bawling. He hates it. Poor kid. He's okay though. We'll never see him again. I assume he's okay. Then we get the full death scene again, where Swamp Thing, like we kind of see everything he said. He's gonna say, "Abby, don't worry. I'm gonna try and send my mind into the green because this body is dying, and I hope it works. And if not, I love you, Abby." And then he just totally decays, and he's dead. Then Nukeface wakes up. What's up, Vince?
It's the end of Swamp Thing. No more Swamp Thing.
That's it. Last issue.
Pack it in.
Then Nukeface wakes up. He remembers Swamp Thing. He remembers the kid. A very nice dream about a nice lady. He's feeling very hopeful, and he says, "Heads up, America! Here I come." And then there's a scene of him just walking off. Newspaper print, a lot of stuff about cancer in Utah. I kind of assumed the next issue would be them hunting him down in Utah, but we never see this guy again in this trade. Maybe he'll come back in a future issue, but yeah, it felt like he was not really a villain of the week. He was just kind of there. Yeah, weakest part of this bunch here. It really picks up. Let's just keep on rolling. Swamp Thing 37. The art for this one switches to Rick Veitch. And this is really cute. We basically see Swamp Thing like growing up from a little plant, and it's really nice. But first we see. Go ahead.
He's a baby Groot before Baby Groot.
Was like a baby Groot. Wow.
And
but first
Rick Veitch, we may have seen he or his brother Tom Veitch did the Dark Empire comics. He did a lot of Dark Horse work. I'm not sure which one.
Yes. Yeah, Rick Veitch. I feel like we've covered that name before at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's worked, I think, on Swamp Thing before, but he's worked with Alan Moore a fair amount.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we are now getting John Constantine. We see him for the first time. He is first hanging out with this drunk lady named Judith at a club in England. And they're talking about how something is coming back. John Constantine says he's coming back, but Judith says, no, it's not a he, it's an it. It's like a scientific thing. It's like coming to pass now. We then have Swamp Thing, some nice scenes of him trying to regrow, and he's like, okay, I'm going to focus on an eye first, because I think I need to see. And Abby keeps going out to look to see if he's like started to regrow, and she thinks she sees a plant that like looks like Swamp Thing. And yeah, it's really cute. It's like a baby Groot. So she's like, all right, I'm gonna take care of this.
Yeah, she's like, I'm gonna spray some pesticide on this. He'll like this.
He'll like that.
From what I know of Swamp Thing, he likes chemicals.
Then bugs. Constantine visits this shut-in nerd named Benjamin, who's talking about how Cthulhu was coming back, how Lovecraft did not make up Cthulhu, and he's really coming back. All right, cool. Yeah, Abby's taking care of the plant. She sees some bugs on him, so that's why she does the insecticide thing, but she's also watering him. And Swamp Thing is like, man, this insecticide is going to damage my eyes that I'm trying to grow. I'm going to focus on growing some vocal cords so I can let her know not to. So then on the next day, he's like, Abby, no more. Oh, and no, she describes the voice as being like Jiminy Cricket. What does he sound like? Abby, no more sprays, stings. And she's like, well, geez, you're welcome for the water, I guess. Then Constantine visits a nun who says Satan is coming back. Basically, everybody has like a different answer for who's coming back. Nobody agrees. But everyone's like, yeah, something evil's coming. Abby, says Alec or something looks like Jiminy Cricket. He's got eyes now. Constantine is hanging out with a girl named Emma in Chicago? No, in New York. In like her studio apartment or something. Says he's driving from New York to Louisiana because he's got to go find the Swamp Thing character. And then we see him in the back of Abby's car asking like, "Hey, how's your boyfriend?" Whoa, real creepy. I figure this Constantine fella is a villain of some sort. That's the vibe I'm getting from him.
He's definitely got like a dude in the shadows vibe, but he's well lit now. But it's still like classic Constantine because he's got like friends and knows everybody everywhere. Like right from the start, which is like I think like a very fun Constantine thing where he shows up in any town and he's like, oh yeah, I know somebody in town that will help us. I always like that about him.
So he says Abby takes him to Abby takes him to Swamp Thing, and Constantine's like, hey, I can help. I know what you are, even if you don't know what you are. And he's like, listen, man, if you can regrow here, you can pretty much regrow anywhere around the world. You should just try it. Cool. So then Emma...
I don't know why I love so much when characters get new powers they didn't know about. I probably like X-Men for this a lot, too.
It's pretty good.
You could do this.
Well, it's also like, he didn't like get it artificially. It's just like, you can do this. Just try to do it. Yeah. It's like, oh, shit, I can do it.
Yeah, he's never tried, so he doesn't know.
Yeah, like you spent like 2 months growing yourself back together. Like you could just do this like instantly, bro. Like it's not a big ordeal.
Well, all right. It's still his first time. He still needed to practice and get a feel for it, right? That's okay.
And Abby was probably overwatering. Probably.
Yeah, that probably made it tougher. Yeah. He does talk later in another issue. He's like, he doesn't want to go swimming because he's like, nah, just like it's nighttime. It's hard for me to dry off when there's no sun. I feel like all damp and heavy.
I don't know if it's in the Moore run. I think it's definitely in the Soul run later where he gets like water plants wherever he happens to grow. It's like the plants of that general area. It's just really really cool image. So he's like a lot more like kelpie and stuff when he's underwater, which is a cool look.
Yeah, I like that.
So we go back to that girl in NYC, Emma. She's got like this drawing she's doing on an easel that we keep seeing. It's kind of weird and creepy. She comes back with coffee though, and it's like erased. It's not there. Weird. Constantine then is like, all right, Swamp Thing is a waste of time. I'm leaving. I'm always all over the place. I got friends everywhere. I will be in Rosewood, just outside of Chicago, in a week. All right. Swamp Thing is like, why do I know that place? Then Emma, her weird drawing has come to life. And
she like opens a cabinet and his arm is like sewn into his back. Very unsettling.
Very, very unsettling. And like also everybody who Constantine had been talking to is going crazy. Like Judith, the bar, Benjamin, and his mom's like all worried about him. Emma jumped out.
She seems to have like a withdrawal. He seems to be having like a seizure. And then the artist is having like a psychotic break apparently.
Yeah, she jumps out the window and lands on the sidewalk and is dead. Terrible. Then Then back to Swamp Thing. Abby asks him for a honeymoon, but all Swamp Thing can think about is Rosewood. Abby's kind of sad. Oh. So yeah, that issue is kind of like the setup for everything. That issue probably could have genuinely been like the beginning of this arc, but we did need to see his body die and all that.
Yeah.
So now Swamp Thing number 38. Now we get into real Freak of the Week territory here. Swamp Thing says bye. He's gonna die so he can regrow all over and go look for Constantine. So he like purposefully lets this body die, and he goes and heads to Rosewood. We have some kids swimming in a lake in Rosewood, and like one of them gets a leech, so they run out all scared, and they're like, "Hey, what's up with Nicky? He didn't run out of the water," and he's like in a coma in the water, and he's like pale, and we see that there's like some fucking merman or something under the water, like gnawing on his legs, and one of them's like, "Oh shit, I think I saw something," but they like go swimming down underneath. Very weird. The friends go get help, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll be back, Nicky." Yeah, it was a really creepy introduction to have. I think the creepiest Freak of the Week introduction that I've seen in quite a bit here. But these mermen dudes, they're not okay. Spoiler alert: they're vampires. They're underwater vampires.
Hell, fucking yes! This is so cool. I told my wife about this the second I saw this. I was like, "This was awesome. You would love it."
I did not expect Swamp Thing versus underwater vampires, but they're really cool.
Right, and it's a return of this town of vampires.
Yes.
Previously in Saga of the Swamp Thing, issue number 3 from a few years earlier.
I figured it would have had to have been. Yeah, they talk about like Constantine is like, "Yeah, you really fucked this place up," and Swamp Thing remembers it. So I'm like, "Oh yeah, this must have been like a pre-Alan Moore adventure that like Alan was never returned to."
So the story is that I guess there was and I'm just guessing then, there was a town of vampires and they flooded the town of vampires to defeat it.
Yes,
by like breaking a dam or something.
They were punk vampires too. They were like in an arcade, and they had like mohawks, and they were like cool punk vampires who were after Swamp Thing's little kid friends. He had a little mute buddy, and then a telekinetic girl who he was also hanging around.
All right, cool. So they
and like
town.
Constantine mentions they were like, Constantine mentions they were in the freezer as well, where the water couldn't get in.
So and the sun couldn't get in. I guess they chilled in freezers as opposed to coffins in this town that was flooded.
Yeah.
And so now it's underwater, so they can do whatever the fuck they want without fear of the sun. So cool.
Yeah, and they didn't have they don't need oxygen, which I didn't realize was a vampire thing, but maybe they're just making it a thing.
This is his thing, and they say that the wooden stakes through the hearts introduces oxygen from the air to their bloodstream, and that's why it's so toxic to them. I'm like, I don't think I've ever heard that, man, but sure. Let's go with it.
I think it makes sense because it's like you never hear of water killing a vampire.
Mm-hmm. The part that I will say really that I liked a lot that makes sense to me is that vampires always have to be on the run and they never have a chance to settle down. And now they're like, "Hey, why didn't we ever think of living underwater?" And they're just like in this perfect state where nobody is bothering them. And most importantly, they're able to reproduce. Oh no!
But they make little like fish vampire babies. It's so cool.
Yeah, I think that's technically the cliffhanger for this issue, where they're like, they're gonna breed. Oh no! But we still have a ways to go to get there. We're so excited about these underwater vampires. We just had to spill the dirt on them. So these underwater vampires, they head down to their drowned town, which is the town of Rosewood, Illinois, and Swamp Thing kind of focuses on that place there, and he starts regrowing. He's definitely getting better at it. He regrows a little bit quicker. Constantine. Meanwhile, we see him and he learns about Emma's suicide. It's like a little verbal thing with some drunk biker. It doesn't appear to lead to anything. The kids, meanwhile, are losing their shit about Nicky. One kid is like, "Man, I saw them under the water." Another one's still bleeding from the leeches. And they're like, "Man, we got to go back for him. We got to tell our parents." They're like, "No, they'll kill us. We're not supposed to go swim in there. We're going to get in trouble." They don't know what to do. We then see these vampires with Charlene, a.k.a. the mother. And they, like, feed her from their own blood. She's, like, their bride, and she's huge. She's, like, pregnant with a million little vampire fish.
This is disturbing.
Very disturbing. Swamp Thing gets fully regrown. Constantine's waiting for him there, and they kind of talk about how this whole thing was his mess from a couple of years ago. We learn all about the vampires. Then one kid, Howard, decides to go back to Nikki and sees him, and he's like pale and he's freezing. And he's like, "Come on, man, let's get you home. Let's get you some clothes." And Nikki was like, "No, I want to swim more." And Howard's like, "Oh, what? It's like middle of the night. I'm gonna go swing all alone and dark out here." And Nikki goes, "Oh man, we're not alone. There's like vampires there," and he's like dragging him to the lake. Oh, it's fucking creepy. Goddamn scary ass vampires.
This would have been such a cool like X-Files, like 45 minutes in, or 35 minutes into the episode moment. You'd be like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, it's good shit. It's good shit. So Swamp Thing number 39. We're back to Stephen Bissett here. One of the boys now is getting slapped by his dad. They said, "Don't go to Rosewood. You shouldn't be there." So Nikki's parents and Howard's parents head out there to find them. Howie is like tied upside down to a rock. And Nikki's got him there for the vampires. And he's like, "Well, why haven't they eaten me now?" And I was like, "No, they're saving him when all the new babies get hatched, and they're going to be hungry." So they're coming up, and there's like vampire fish, and Swamp Thing is trying to fight them, but he's really terrible at it. He's not a good fighter. One fish takes a giant bite out of him, and like his head just goes floating off into the ocean, into the lake. It's a pretty fun panel, I think, where Swamp Thing was ready to fight, and he's like, "Oh shit, I'm just a floating head now." But the fish also does not like him because he's just a gross vegetable. He's not even like flesh and blood. So it just moves on. And Swamp Thing says, "Okay, I think I gotta fight a little differently." Then the parents go to these.
You skipped over the part too where like the big fat vampire, she lays all these eggs, and then the eggs hatch on the 50-yard line, like at the football stadium, and then they all eat each other until one is like the winner of all of the eggs killing each other.
I did not even notice that. I must have flipped right past it. That's fucking nasty.
Yeah.
We then get these parents who come to find the kids, and this scene is very entertaining, I thought, where Nikki's parents are like, "Oh my god, there's our baby," and the mom goes to like hug him, and dad's like, I don't think you should hug that kid. Something looks off here. And Nikki, it's not Nikki anymore. And even Howard's yelling, like, "Don't come near him, it's not Nikki." He just kills his mom, like eats her neck out.
When they see him, she's like, "I think the kids hurt each other." Like he looks like an animal, and his friend is like upside down, tied to a rock. I'm like, why would you trust anything this kid is doing?
Yeah. It's pretty messed up. And then the dad like gets a shotgun, I think, and has to like is trying to fight them off. He gets eaten by one of these big giant fish monsters.
Nikki big. There's only one.
Yes, you're right. The big fish monster. So Nikki and his parents are like, they're done. Howard's parents were much smarter and just generally better at everything, I think. They rescue their son, head back to the car. They're out of there. We get Swamp Thing now. Turns himself into the mountain, or like into the land, and he raises up like a mountain, and he raises this whole city up out of the water. And so the water starts to like drain. He's draining the swamps. And
all right, good job.
It runs into the river. The dead buried city now has no water in it. The vampires are all in the sun. They turn to skeletons. It's done. That's how you fight him, Swamp Thing. Good job. Then he regenerates himself up right in front of Constantine, who is timing it. 51 seconds. Not bad. But he says, "Man, this was a botched job. A family got away. Now they're going to tell this whole story of vampires going to spread just like they planned it." Like, what are you talking about? Like, oh man, all this evil stuff is going to be popping up. It's going to be happening everywhere. Meet me in Maine in 2 weeks for the next one. Which this really, man, Constantine leading Swamp Thing around for a Freak of the Week. That's a great TV show. I'd watch that show.
It's really good. I also hate it. Like if I was a like you could just tell him. There's no reason to be cagey, John. Like it's not like he's not like ready to know. You're just like leading him on for no reason.
Yeah.
But man, it's good. This is like, yeah, this is good. Like it's got that perfect like thing that I love of like semi-serialized television where it's like the first 5 minutes of the episode are like, hey, remember that long plot we have? Yeah, let's go do this other plot for 40 minutes. And then the last 5 minutes they're like, hey, we should probably get back to that plot. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. It's Scully looking at his computer for like one scene, and then the rest of it is chasing vampires around.
Yep.
So good.
Good
Supernatural ripped off a lot of the early Vertigo too. Supernatural is a good show that if you like this kind of stuff, it's a lot like X-Files but with more paranormal stuff.
So we got 3 issues to go. 2 freaks of the week here between them. The next one is a werewolf issue here. We start with a nice tender scene with Swamp Thing and Abby, and he kind of likes that he can travel anywhere around the world in an instant, but he's only a second away from Abby. Oh, it's so sweet.
Well, we don't start with that. We start with this woman who we've never met's terrible life, which apparently, I guess, I've never been a housewife, but she's just being like aggressively targeted by all the sales stuff, and she's buying tampons. So I guess she's very aware of this. But they're like, oh, the perfect thing for a housewife, a knife set.
Yeah, she doesn't. She's not into it.
And she remembers. She remembers her like familial past, where like she's on her period, but like at least it's not as bad as when her family members used to be put up like in this weird cabin above the treetops, and then like hiding from the moon. It's like that's weird, but people be terrible to women throughout history, so it makes sense. But it's about to get more supernatural.
Yeah, their home is like on a Native American reservation of some sort, I think, was what they mentioned, and they're taught like there's images of like these rituals they used to do, and the stuff they would drink from, and how all these things were smashed and buried. And I'm like, okay, there's some dark stuff happening on this plot of land here. And this anger of hers is all kind of rising to the top.
Yeah, she hates her husband because he's terrible.
He is very terrible. The husband gets home one night, and his first question is like, "What are you doing out here? Where's my dinner?"
Well, first when they have guests over, she's like, "More coffee," and he's like, "Yes, but no dessert for you."
Oh my god, this guy!
You're trying to lose the weight you had after you had a kid years ago.
Fun fact,
women love this.
If you're ever married, fun fact, if you're ever married, don't ever say any of these things. This is what not to do.
Don't ever say.
Like I'm legitimately like I'm like tense reading this. I'm like, fucking no, you don't we don't say these things. This is not appropriate.
So, I love the art choice of just this, like, there's just the, like, mouth of, like, it's just red on over a black background, where it's just, like, the rage monster inside her, where it's just like, all right, I'm going to suppress this.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, where's my dinner? And she goes, oh, I don't want any dinner. She's just, like, standing out in the yard. He's like, oh, really? What about me? Some other new diet? What about my dinner? And she's like, go away, leave me alone. And he's getting mad at her. She like starts to let it out. She's like fainting, and I gotta say, this is like my favorite werewolf transformation of all time, because she does not transform. She doesn't like turn into a werewolf. A werewolf's mouth, like snout, comes out of her mouth and like gradually comes more and more out and like opens its mouth and is like it like exits her body, and you see a husk of a person left on the ground.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
This is my panel of the week right here.
Hell cool. Yeah, great job, Stephen Bissett. Perfect.
Again, that husband right before she does that, he's like, oh, I get it. It's PMS, isn't it?
And I'm like,
he's like, Phoebe, oh my god.
She's like calling PMS, and I'm like, the rage monster. She's just gonna snap, and she's gonna stab him so bad that I know I've seen this type of more in Sandman type story. This woman's gonna snap, and she's gonna there's a werewolf coming out of her mouth. Okay, did not see that coming. Despite there being a werewolf on the cover, I was like, hell yeah! Between the underwater vampires and the werewolf rage monster coming out of a woman, this is like the book for my wife. She fucking would love this shit. It's so good.
So we get a nice little scene where Phoebe like chases her husband, almost kills him as well, and is like getting ready to, but then Swamp Thing is there, and oh well, even okay. So hold on. First, we get Swamp Thing showing up, and they have like kind of a standoff where they're not really attacking each other. They're not enemies, but like Swamp Thing's like, you know what? This is not my place of power. This is like her domain. She kind of like I get what she needs to do. Should I do anything? And the werewolf like kind of grabs Swamp Thing and pushes him away. Then she goes to kill her husband. She's like, I can't. It's still my husband. And she like runs away instead.
He shits his pants in cowardice.
Yeah.
So like this is where I feel like this is most like a Sandman. Like I'm more familiar with the Sandman Netflix show than the comic, but like if you took Swamp Thing out and put Sandman like Morpheus in this place, Dream, like it's the exact same issue to me. He just rolls up and he's like, "Should I interfere? No, this is not my place. It's not my place of power. I'm just gonna walk away." Okay, cool.
Yeah, he would need some other character to be like, maybe you should do something, Morpheus, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'll get it right on that."
So then
that's kind of how that comic works. It's either death or like one of his little sidekicks or somebody being like, "Are you gonna do something?"
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. I was gonna let the story just play out, but sure.
Yeah. So she goes around to like the whole city and all these different places where she feels like, women are being treated like, poorly or like being forced into marriage or whatever kind of stuff like that, whatever's expected of them.
What was about to happen at this like adult bookstore?
Yeah, I feel like they were going to get like this guy is like trying to read the magazines without paying for them. And the guy's like, "Hey, this ain't a library." And he's like, "Yeah, this stuff sucks anyways. You got any I'm looking for something unusual." And he's like, "Yeah, I got something in the back I can show you."
What did he have in the back?
I don't know, but this werewolf busts through the window, and I'd put an end to that.
But this one guy in the front doesn't seem that plussed by it. He's still looking at his magazine, Big Mama Jammas. He's not
Big Mama Jammas. It looks like he's dropping it.
It's just we were about to see something very strange, and I feel like we lost it.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time setting up whatever that was gonna be. I'm like, all right, not like a lot of time. It's only 3 panels, but it's like a lot of exposition, more than I thought we were gonna get.
And it's like the '80s, so I have no idea. Like, is it gonna be like something really crazy, or is it gonna be something where you're like, yeah, that's normal? Yeah. Like, I got girls on girls back there. You're like, whoa.
Or like human trafficking. Like I don't.
Something terrible where you're like, this is a crime, sir.
I feel like it was closer to that, whatever it was.
It could have gone either way. We have no idea.
Really don't know. So Swamp Thing approaches the werewolf, and I was like, "Hey, listen, let me help you. You can tell me what you want. I'll see if I can help you." And she's like, I'm a woman. I seek release from this stifling place that has been built for me. And he's like, yeah, I can't help you with that. And she's like, then give me death. Oh, okay. So she goes wild a little bit, wild in the grocery store for a little bit. She like attacks this knife display that was there for like, hey, good knives for housewives. And she impales herself on this knife display, and starts to like turn back into a human, and Swamp Thing carries her out. She says, "I don't want to die indoors. Take me outdoors." He like lays her out on a field somewhere, and yeah, that's where she dies.
Yeah, I feel like pretty unsafe display by this grocery store. Just knives sticking out.
So if anyone could have tripped on that.
Yeah, you did really good store displays. Did you ever just stick knives just like out?
Those are my best ones.
There's a new Knives Out movie coming out. Let's get the knives
with the world market tie-in for the new Knives Out. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I bet it'd be cool if you worked at like a gun store to have like a display, and you like, if you can set them off to like automatically fire without you there, like up into the air, so no one gets hurt.
That'll never go wrong.
That'll never go wrong. So then Swamp Thing meets up with Constantine at the end. He's like, "Yeah, dark stuff, huh?" So here's your next assignment, and he hands him a paper, and Swamp Thing says, "Hey, I'm done with your shitty assignments. You're not my master. Don't tell me what to do. I want to go home to Louisiana." Really? All right, whatever you want, man. And Swamp Thing looks at the paper and says, "Louisiana." All right, fuck.
I mean, good thing it's not like Lake Charles, like someplace on the other side, or like right in like Bourbon Street or something, where it's far away from where Swamp Thing lives. Yeah. No, it's like right. Yeah, it's like literally like a 10-minute drive.
Yeah. The next cover has like a voodoo doll of Swamp Thing, but it looks like the Grinch. It's pretty good. So this next two-parter here. These are the last couple issues that we're doing, 41 and 42. 41, it starts, all of these issues really do start kind of ambiguous, where it's just like, here's something kind of creepy, but we're not going to tell you exactly what's creepy about it yet. And so we're kind of learning about this home where some messed up stuff happened in the basement. We learn that there's like a new soap opera that's happening where they are starting to get ready for it. It's going to be filmed in this home. They're going to be filming in like a month while everything is getting worked on, but they're just like kind of in the starting phases for things. Abby also is like getting a job as a gopher on set. Seems very random, but okay. I feel like that fits perfectly.
Everybody's getting work by this rejuvenating town. I guess they're hiring locals for extras also.
Yeah, they're hiring lots of extras.
Yeah, if this was in the 2000s, Nicolas Cage would be one of these actors. I mean, I guess we know which actor he would probably be.
Probably, I think so.
Like for a Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans or something?
Something like that.
But this is supposed to be like a dynasty primetime soap kind of thing.
It is, yeah. And it's definitely like a period piece about like a Louisiana like plantation owner kind of thing is what's going on here.
With an illicit love between a slave owner and her slave.
Yeah, and there's like three main characters on this, like three main actors who we're gonna kind of follow throughout all this. There's Billy, who like plays a slave, and he's not super happy with some of the lines about like things he needs to say, especially because the lead actress, what's her name, Abby? She's kind of
Abby is.
Sorry, Abby's our main character. Angela is like kind of racist. She's like pretty blatantly racist. She's talking to her friend, the other actor, Richard. And Richard's a pretty liberal guy who's he happens to be playing the slave owner. He's like not super comfortable with it, but he's like trying to be real understanding of what Billy's going through and the slave character. And the other actress, I forgot her name again. Why didn't I write this down?
Angela.
Thank you. Angela.
Like who's the boss? Yeah, exactly.
Angela's the boss, actually. Yeah. And she's really terrible. I forget like one of the things. I don't know. Just bad vibes from her.
Yeah, she seems to just want to get in a fight with everybody on set, and is crappy.
Yeah. So that's setting the stage for where we're at. There's a nice scene earlier that I didn't want to skip over, where Abby asks Swamp Thing if he feels like disconnected, always jumping around in a different body, and he's like, "No, I really don't." And he's like, "Don't worry, like this body will always love you." That was very sweet. They really do have such a pure love.
Yeah. And I do like the foreshadowing, earlier it's like July 25th, Feast of Papa Gao, or however you say that. And then, I mean, I guess I would say it's foreshadowing. It's Alan Moore. But as they're like, oh yeah, they're cleaning up this house. All these extras are, doing this work. You see somebody has a boombox, and what are they listening to? Hulk Hogan's entrance theme.
Are they really? I'm a Real American. Is that what they're listening to?
Voodoo Child.
Oh, that I see.
Is NWO.
Oh, that theme. Okay, not Real American.
No, not Real American. That was the joke. But Voodoo Child, because it's a voodoo story.
I see. I didn't even pick up on that. We then have, so we were starting to get into like rehearsals. They're not ready to film the soap opera yet, but they're rehearsing. And Billy is really upset about this line he doesn't want to say. He's like, "I will never bow down before this actress." And the director's like, "We're not even at that part where we're worrying about lines. We're just getting the vibe. We're just feeling things out. We're feeling the location. You just say whatever you want to say, man. It's totally okay. And so Billy then, like, he did this earlier as well, where he like kind of goes into a trance or something for a second when he's complaining to the director, and the director like thinks it's drugs again. He's like, Billy, don't do that coke. I told you. But it kind of happens again here in this moment. But then he just starts acting, and he's like super respectful to her and like super in character, and he calls her Charlotte. And the director's like, hey man, that was great, but just like heads up, Charlotte's not her character's name. I don't know where that came from, so don't say that. But really great stuff, really in character, good work.
Yeah, we'll dub that in later, put
Yeah.
the right name in.
So then we get another scene later where Richard, the guy who's playing the slave owner, not comfortable with it, and they're like, just try it, give it a shot. And he like all of a sudden kind of goes into a trance for a second, and then he's super good at it, and he's like hitting Billy with a whip and like saying some pretty mean stuff. And the director's like, man, I thought you said you didn't feel comfortable. That was perfect, man. And Richard's like, man, Billy, I'm sorry I hit you with that whip. Like, what whip? You were just like doing the motions. Richard's like, what? There's nothing in my hands? What? So yeah, there's some weird stuff happening here. We jump to a month later, and all of the extras have been like sleeping around the set at night, and they seem to have developed some sort of religion as well. It's worth noting all the extras are also like they're all playing slaves essentially. So it's all the colored folk, as they start to call them. They're like everyone starts slipping here and there, and like, oh yeah, all the coloreds, blah blah blah. And they're like, don't you mean extras, man? And I'm like, oh yeah, extras, right? And everyone's like getting further and further into these characters, and just like turning into like what this place used to be in the past. Billy is in a room doing lines of coke, and Angela finds him and was like, don't worry, I won't tell anybody. And they're like friends now. Okay. Abby now is like, they keep mentioning her like working at this place, but we never actually like get any scenes of it until now. And she like runs into an old friend of hers who worked at the autistic place up there with her, and she's acting kind of strange. She's like spreading salt everywhere. She just thinks this whole place is a really weird vibe. So she tells Swamp Thing, like, hey, didn't Constantine say some weird stuff was going to happen in Louisiana? This place feels kind of weird. I feel like you should check it out. Swamp Thing says, yeah, sure, let's check it out. You want to go together? And she's like, what? You're not going to tell me it's like too dangerous or anything? He's like, no, it'll be fine. And she's like, okay, let's go. So they go together. And there's a bunch of bonfires now on the set at night. And the director is confused. Like, I didn't authorize any of this. Why is everything on fire? Richard is also like getting all huffy about stuff. And he's like, where is Angela? And the director is like, listen, man, I'm the director. You got to respect me. And like, it's in my contract that none of this stuff's supposed to go off the rails. And Richard's like, I don't care. Where is she? Like, I think I saw her go in the house with Billy. Like, I see. They're getting cozy in there a little bit together, and Richard takes a couple of extras with him, and he's like, "I see you're sleeping with the help, Angela," or whatever her character's name is. They call her. They're all referring to each other in character, like 100% all the time at this point. And Richard orders that they take Billy downstairs and they flay him. Yeah. And the other extras tie him up and they bare his chest, and Richard's got a knife, and it's all messed up. Things are going off the rails here. And then
very
jumping
much
straight
like
into the
American Horror Story. This story,
Yeah.
like I could feel this. I feel like this. I could absolutely see this as an American Horror Story season. Like, we're making a television. It's camp, but it's working pretty well. You kind of know where this is going.
yeah, you can tell pretty early.
Would Sarah Paulson be the stuffy racist actress, or would
absolutely
she be...
And yeah, she would be the stuffy racist actress. I'm gonna cast Cuba Gooding Jr. as the actor Billy, and I'm gonna cast Evan Peters as the director, just because Evan Peters were great for that. I don't know who we cast as the husband. So I don't know. I'll get back to you on that.
Are they married? Are they a husband and wife?
No. But when he's ghosty now, he is. When he starts.
I see.
How about Dylan McDermott, since he's in season 1 of American
Dylan
Horror
McDermott
Story.
would be really good. That's good casting right there. Yep. Hell yeah. Because he like can be charming, but then turn smarmy. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. He's like a good lawyer sometimes, but he can also be like a shitty other man in a movie.
I mean, if we were doing the season 1, we could just do Connie Britton there too, also as the sheriff.
Yeah, it would be kind of an upgrade, I guess. But anyway.
So in this next part, the final issue we're reading here, all the skeletons in the graves are getting restless, and they start coming up out of their graves, heading back to the site of this home. Are they skeletons? Are they zombies? They're something like that. It's somewhere.
They're not underwater vampires. I do know that.
They're not underwater vampires. Abby and Swamp Thing, they run into Abby's friend Alice, and she keeps talking about how she didn't lay enough salt to keep them in. Got to lay more salt.
That's true.
Abby heads into the house. I feel like I kind of skipped a lot of stuff throughout this issue, so definitely let me know if there was something important I missed. But Abby heads into the home to try and get everyone out of there. But man, they are deep in it. And Richard is like, Charlotte, is this a friend of yours? She's wearing trousers. Why is your friend dressed like a man? And they get in this weird argument, and Richard stabs Abby with the knife that he just flayed Billy with. Oh my god. We learn very quickly this is not a real knife. It's one of those knives that like retracts into the hilt. Nobody got flayed. Everybody is fine. But she's like, yeah.
Are they? Who knows?
Well, who knows?
Abby is fine.
Among the zombies is Alice's dad. And there's a very sweet reunion between them. And she's like, oh, Daddy, I miss you. And they're just like, she's just kind of hanging out with the zombie, and they're walking around. How nice.
Yeah. Well, it's a crazy scene because she's basically like, I remember my mom buried you in the like slave cemetery because it was cheaper. I'm like, oh, what? So all of these other zombies are like 150 years old. He's like 40 years old. So he looks better than them.
He looks much better than them. And eventually Swamp Thing gets over to Richard, and he's like telling everybody to stop this madness, like end this cycle that's like being repeated here. And Richard shoots Swamp Thing with a shotgun, blasts him into the fire. And now a blazing Swamp Thing is like pissed, and he's like, cycle of hate can't continue. And he like sets the whole damn building on fire. And it kind of puts an end to the spell. I'm like, does it? I don't know. Everyone is still in shock in the morning, and they're like still kind of half in it. This comic, it's had a very weird ending. There's a weird scene with the camera guy's truck. What was this scene? They like crashed the truck and didn't realize it, and then just kind of walked out.
Yeah. So Abby is like, well, I didn't see where the zombies went. They must have gone back to their graves. And then the guy's like, somebody stole my truck.
Okay, I see.
And then they're like, yeah, we saw somebody slam, like they were driving recklessly. They slammed into a tree, and then they got out laughing and just ran down the street.
All right.
Like, so it's the zombies, huh?
So it's zombies. All right. And then another, the final scene of this trade is a guy, like a movie theater owner, and he's trying to find someone to sell tickets to work the ticket booth. And there's a guy, and he's just like super happy with the job. He says, it'll be fine. When do I start? Don't care about pay. I can just sit here forever. It's nice and cramped and tight. That's okay. Cool.
I'm comfortable with this box, but I got a window now as opposed to just being underground. Because the issue started with like him, like, or I guess a different skeleton, I guess.
Being
just in the coffin.
It must have been, just like feeling tight underground, unable to get any sleep because they're just cramped.
I liked the 80s reference because you wouldn't do that today because no one would expect it. But he's like, I like the two don't care about unions or pay.
Yeah.
Really sets out that he's a scumbag. He also, this is like a B movie theater because he's got Ilsa, the harem keeper of the oil sheiks poster.
Boy.
So this is like another like that adult bookstore. Like this is a second run like crappy movie theater.
Yeah,
they had good stuff too. Though they had Dawn of the Dead,
Orgy of the Living Dead, also.
Oh, they did. I missed that.
Yeah, I mean, Dawn of the Dead would be shown at like that kind of theater.
You're right.
It's a good movie, but they're like, yeah, we're just gonna show exploitation crap. This has zombies in it.
It makes me happy. Though. It's a really cute, charming end for some reason.
It is. It like doesn't fit in with anything though, and I don't think it was specifically mentioned. This is Alice's dad, Bat Zombie, who gets his job, and it is cute. I'm like, what? I thought we were gonna get like a Constantine ending, like we have been with everything else.
No.
But
no
Constantine here.
It is funny because he did do that issue. I think the second to last issue of the previous trade. I don't know if you remember, where it's basically just a reprint of an old like 70s horror story. Like this is the most like 70s or 60s, or I guess not 60s, but 50s horror like twist ending where you're like, what?
So yeah, that was Swamp Thing Volume 3. I'm sure we're gonna come back to Swamp Thing Volume 4 at some point here, hopefully sooner, because it feels like we didn't get like a ton of resolution. It is kind of freak of the weeky stuff, but I'm sure we're gonna get like more on this Constantine angle.
It had some really good forward momentum. This one had, like, it had a good like actually like, what other powers does Swamp Thing have? Like Constantine was hinting at like they want you to be afraid of vampires and werewolves again. It's like, well, to what end? Is there another like apocalypse thing happening that we need to create so much like fear in the world? I'm assuming that's where this is going.
Something like that.
But man, this was really just like solid. Like all three of these Swamp Things that we've read. I think the first Swamp Thing is really good that we read, but also is like can be a little more dense and hard to parse. And then the one we read last year was like a big epic with Arcane. And then this one was pretty straightforward, but all freak of the weeks, but all really, like one to two parters that were all really, really solid. I really like this.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah, and it's I mean, she doesn't have a ton to do, but I do think Abigail Arcane is like one of the like more interesting, girl without powers kind of character like this. Like, I don't know, she's really I like her so much more than basically everybody that's not Mary Jane. Where it's like, wow, she's really interesting. Like, she's very proactive. I guess Lois Lane in that category as well, as like top tier. Love interest where it's like, yeah, I get it. Like, she's awesome.
Yeah. Just a good support to have. And like a lot of time their scenes are like, we're just hanging out being in love. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. That's great.
Yeah, I mean,
good for them.
Spider-Man should never be happy. So Mary Jane not allowed to be happy like that. She has to constantly be like, Peter, I'm so stressed.
Yeah. Or like a love triangle usually is what they try to do, like some drama. And like it's like,
yeah, I did think that, like, okay, Swamp Thing is taking her on this adventure. This is where she's gonna die or something like that. I'm like, no, she's fine. She held her own.
Yeah, I do like that fake, because it was like, again, if this was a TV show, it would be like one of the main characters being stabbed like 5 minutes in. We're like, well, obviously they're fine. Where when she gets stabbed, you're like, this isn't even a like halfway through the issue, cliffhanger. It's like 2 pages later, she pulls the knife out and it's like, yeah, I'm fine.
She's okay.
I gotta figure out what that Swamp Thing TV series was that was like out on DC Infinite. I know it was a lot of body horror, but I have no idea what it even was. From like 2019.
Yeah. Was that was just one season, right?
Right. Yeah, I think it was expensive and it got canceled. But I heard it was like Hannibal level of like beautiful gore.
Ooh,
that's interesting.
Yeah. Is it on HBO? Post August 31st.
Should be.
Oh, maybe.
It should be. That's one I need to probably just dive into and check out.
Dive into the swamp.
I can't believe they made an expensive show like that just for a DC Comics app. That's insane.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. They're like, oh, we'll just release shows on this thing that's mostly for comics.
That's the same price as the Marvel Comics app. I'm like, and now they're like, oh, we just cut it all. Yeah, so stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, for more guys, check out my other podcast for more of my Warner Brothers thoughts. But insane decisions all around.
Pretty insane. Like they canceled the what movie? Like the
Batgirl.
The Batgirl. That's what I was gonna say. Huntress, because we're reading Huntress. But no, they canceled the Batgirl movie, even though it's like very close to being done. Weird.
Yeah, not only canceled it, deleted the footage.
Oh.
I'm like, why? You've got it.
Just hold on to it. Maybe you'll want it for something.
Yeah. Maybe somebody was gonna want to finish it, in like a year or two. Like, who knows? But anyway, let's. I think we were doing final thoughts, right? I think everybody liked it.
Yeah, I think we all liked it. Is there any other final thought?
No, just I'm glad we read it. It felt it definitely scratched the itch after watching the Sandman TV show for me. It really it did exactly what I wanted it to do.
Yeah, and I will say, it's Alan Moore is relatively new to his writing. He is not subtle, which I think is good and bad. The nuke issues I think are a little bit too much of like a sledgehammer to the face of like, yeah, we get it, toxic waste bad. But I do think the like period issue is like a good like counter to that. Like that's a really good issue about an issue that most teenage boys reading that comic. I mean, I know lots of people read comics, but when DC is like, who's reading this? They had to think that like 12-year-old boys were going to read it, and like, there's no way you had read a comic like that in 1986 or whatever before this.
I will say the cover says sophisticated suspense, so I think they were aiming towards a different demographic. But you're right.
They weren't selling this in drugstores. It was a direct market book, but still, like you're still selling that. I mean, when I was going to comic book stores, I was like 11 years old buying X-Men comics that were very violent. Like the Age of Apocalypse. So it's like that's who wants that, and then they're gonna see this and be like, "What the?"
Mm-hmm. I'm a sophisticated young boy.
Yeah, exactly.
But good stuff. Well, I have a feeling we'll come back to this sooner rather than later. But always more Sandman. Not Sandman, Swamp Thing somewhere on the horizon. But yeah, let's get to our long read here now. We mentioned at the beginning we're doing just some fun stuff with Earth 2 heroes, just for the hell of it, really. I feel like I don't know anything about Earth 2, and so this was kind of like a really good first issue to read, to just be like, all right, we're in a different world here.
Right, and the little like we just read the one story from this, DC Superstars number 17.
So they have this issue had the origin of Green Arrow and the origin of the Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah, I don't think that was an origin of Green Arrow. It was just a Green Arrow story.
I see. We're reading The Secret Origin of the Huntress, the third story in this thing. The caption says, Earth 2's newest heroine begins her career right here. Learn why the Golden Age Batman retired, who he married, and what their connection is. Okay.
It's very what is it? Was it MC2? Was that what it was called? The Marvel Universe 2 or something like that, Chris? With Spider-Girl?
Yeah, the Tom DeFalco Spider-Girl spinoff world.
Yes. Feels very like
where
that.
Batman, or that one was Spider-Man is now older and now he's got a teenage daughter who decides to be a superhero. Hell yeah.
Yes.
So,
but this was 1978 here. We start with a little bit of an explanation of what Earth 2 is and how it's all the heroes you love, but they started in the 40s. And in this world, Catwoman surrendered to the police and she reformed. And when she got out of prison, Bruce Wayne was waiting for her, and they got married that afternoon. Did I read that right?
Yep.
It's
which can you imagine the fucking story that billionaire Bruce Wayne married a woman the day she came out of prison? Can you fucking imagine?
But you know what? She was never that evil. She never committed the ultimate sin of murder, which is why she was able to reform. She never hit true evil.
Also, she's very hot, Vince. So the media would be like, obviously she has him under her spell or whatever. Yeah. It would be the angle that they would go with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they have a kid named Helena. Bruce Wayne becomes a social activist. Robin grows up and goes out on his own. Helena has grown to be a nice young woman now.
So I have a few questions.
Yes.
Chris, is this all like pretty? Is this also told like in the Justice Society books that are going around this time?
Well, I mean, Batman and everybody are pretty old. They don't talk about it, but they do say like Batman will be like, well, actually, Catwoman reformed on my Earth. So I don't know if all of this has been set up before, but some of it has. It's just kind of like basically once a year in Justice League. The two Earths get close enough that they can go to their spaceship, their space station, clubhouse.
Because Earth 2 is like on the opposite side of the sun or some shit like that? No, that's a
I mean, It's an alternate. Yeah, it's not.
You're thinking of Marvel. You're thinking of Counter Earth.
Yeah, that's Counter Earth. That's different. But it's just basically the planets align for like a week every year, and every year they do like basically like a softball game that always turns into like a villain attacking them.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So like the idea of like Dick Grayson doesn't become Batman, I guess, in this universe, but he is like his own hero.
Yeah, Robin is like a 40-year-old man now.
He's still Robin, though. They keep calling him Robin.
Yeah, he's just an adult man who calls himself Robin.
He's wearing pants, though. He is wearing pants now, though.
He no longer wears the short shorts.
So we get a phone call, and Helena says, I wrote this quote down because it was just, all right. Drat, the phone had to ring just as I was about to trounce you at backgammon, Daddy. All right, this is who these people are.
Daddy, I was about to trounce you at backgammon before the phone rang.
Selena answers it, and she's like, Wayne residence. Who's that? What? And she makes a hasty excuse and leaves. It's like, oh, who was this on the phone? Where's she heading to? And she has to go to her old home to meet Silky Cernak, who I guess was an old connection of hers. He wants her to pay him back for ratting him out all those years ago. He just got out of prison, needs her for a job. And she's like, no, I'm like straight now. You're not gonna like get me back into the life of crime.
I have a daughter who's 25 years old. Go away.
and
maybe she's only like 21 and she's a genius. I don't know, because she is like a lawyer.
Yeah. And Silky says, oh, everyone only knows Bruce Wayne only married you because you never killed anyone. But look at this picture I have where you did kill someone. You choked this person to death. And even Catwoman's like, oh, geez, I didn't even know that happened. I thought I threw my things at his neck, but I thought I missed.
She's got like a Charlie Brown pose. Like,
yeah. And like this is enough for her to be like, fine, I'll do it to save my marriage. And I'm like, you've been with this guy for over 20 years now. It's not like, I think you would be fine in this situation. Like and the guy's not even dead in the picture. He's just like choking.
And it's like, clearly she didn't try to kill him.
Yeah. Like I'm boggled by this.
Would Batman throw her back in prison? It's like, well, you've committed another crime, Selena.
You killed someone 20 years ago.
We have to reopen the case and try you for murder.
It's a super dickery thing right there.
Yeah.
Just cold case, Selena. There's no statute of limitations.
Jeez. Meanwhile, Commissioner Gordon raises the bat signal for something. And Robin is away on foreign affairs. So Bruce is like, all right, I'll throw on the old costume. Let's see what this is about. And he heads to Commissioner Gordon, who has a tip about a raid on the Gotham Civic Center.
In this world, Batman debuted 37 years earlier.
So he's at least 37.
Yeah, he's in his late 50s at the youngest.
At the youngest, yeah. He should not be going out, but hey, you know what? He's committed to the job.
Yeah, imagine how bad his arthritis has to be at this point.
Shit, right? He's gonna have one bad knee injury.
Yeah. Robin's away. The tip about the Gotham Civic Center, that's exactly where Silky Cernak is sending Selena. God.
Oh no. I see where this is
also,
going.
I wrote that down, but Silky Cernak sending Selena is kind of a tongue twister. So Selena has her old Catwoman gang, and they're all dressed like Catwoman, like the old purple costume. It's kind of cute.
Yeah, I like that Batman's like, nice try, Catwoman reformed.
Yeah, and he's like, Selena, what are you doing here? But it's like, it's too late. It's in the middle of a bunch of action, and she gets knocked off of like a ledge, and she falls, and she dies. Right then and there.
Silky tries to shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if she gets shot or she just falls.
I think she falls, but it's
I think she just falls.
No, it says the stray bullet finds a mark. So she is shot.
Oh, you're right.
Shot and falls.
Oh,
shot
double
falls.
Whammy.
Double whammy. And then there's a funeral and everything, and then afterwards, Helena takes on a cowl, and she's at her mother's grave, vowing to find justice. Because Bruce Wayne is just he's grieving too much to even care about justice now. And Helena.
He probably feels kind of responsible since it wouldn't have happened except for him.
So he came out of retirement to stop a jewel thief. Like, why?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and ended up killing his wife. Yep.
Yeah.
She so Helena is tracking down this art collector that Silky was probably going to sell these jewels to or something. She's a really good detective, just like her dad. Okay, she's able to get all the info she needs. As this art guy is heading to the deal, she shoots out his tires, and Huntress heads to the deal instead. And she meets Silky, and it looks like it's like the image of Batman, like that silhouette there, but it's Huntress. And while Silky is fighting, he is gleefully talking about how great that night of the jewel heist was, and how he tricked Selena with a fake photo. It wasn't even a real damn photo. Oh my god. And he's like telling this story while they're fighting as well. It seems like a lot to say while you're fighting. I know that's like a conceit of comics, but it stood out to me here in this panel.
This is how we gotta do classic comics. This is only a 12-page story. We gotta get her whole origin in, and we spent a lot of time on other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we almost spent a one panel on a backgammon game. We gotta get to the end.
We gotta move. So then the next morning, Bruce and Helena, they're heading to the courthouse for whatever, their jobs or something, and they see Silky tied up in a net waiting for the cops there. And Bruce is like, oh, I guess Dick must be back from Madagascar. But Helena thinks it might be someone new, and she has a feeling they're here to stay. Like, come on. Your dad instantly has to know, because no one would say that. That sounds like a stupid thing to say, Helena. Come on.
That's something the Batgirl would say to Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, I think that literally is in a Batman the Animated Series episode when she like makes her second appearance as Batgirl.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I do appreciate. I don't know. I'm assuming y'all are raising DC Infinite. It went from digital coloring back to like the old coloring. Like whatever intern they hired to do the digital coloring just didn't get around to the last page, and like we got to.
Or like I don't know what. Or like maybe they didn't have like a particular source and they had to go to like a backup source or something like that. I don't know. There was something weird in one of those pages. You're right.
There's one issue. I don't know if we're reading it or not. That's in black and white because they just, I guess, never digitally colored it. It's not a black and white comic.
Oh, interesting.
It's just whatever they got on Infinity is a like the Essentials version, whatever DC calls that, where it's just the pencils only.
I can't imagine many people are reading DC Superstars number 17.
We did.
Well,
we did.
It's in DC Infinite because of this story. You have to assume that there's only 4 issues of the whole thing in here.
It's great though.
Yeah, I think it
really
was like an
enjoyed
18
this,
issue too.
This is like, I like a future Batman story. I like seeing like an extrapolation of like where they are 30, 40 years later. It's a good what if issue that moved pretty quickly.
Yeah,
art was good.
It was fine. I didn't really care. It was just kind of there.
Wow, Catwoman dies and you don't even care.
I didn't even care. Nope.
It's very what if.
Because you're right. It did feel like a what if issue. It didn't feel like the real Catwoman.
Yeah.
It was just like she's in jail and they get married the same afternoon. And I'm like, all right, I can't take this thing seriously at this point.
Did you read the explanation page, like the text page that they had before the issue, the story? Yeah.
Did I? I don't think so.
Basically, they needed another girl on the Justice Society that wasn't just Power Girl. And they were like, how the fuck do we create another girl on this team? And then they made up Huntress as a result of that. Like that was the impetus for Huntress. And she's like Helena Bertinelli or something in the modern DC universe, something like that.
Yes.
She's got.
Although they have brought back Helena Wayne in some form recently, which really? I was reading about it. And I was like, really? Okay. Because that's the Birds of Prey TV show from like 2002 has this version of Huntress in Birds of Prey. So they have never completely thrown away this character, but yeah, Crisis, they made Helena Bertinelli, so they only kept the first name and then made her Italian, and completely different. But she still has a crossbow, which I did like. Crossbow in the first appearance, she uses it. She can't. It's kind of like Leonardo and the foot soldiers. She can't just be crossbowing people left and right. She can use it in clever ways.
Yeah, it's a good crossbow. Well, I'm excited to read more Earth 2 stuff though, because I think it is interesting to just have, well, like an ultimate universe or just like any other sort of side universe. I think what if stories are generally good, but I like when they're fleshed out into like a full thing. So yeah, I'm excited to see more of this Earth 2 stuff. So what do we read next time? Next time, our main read is going to be some She-Hulk. There's a new She-Hulk TV show out, which I have not watched yet, but looks interesting. We read some Dan Slott She-Hulk a while back when they rebooted it in 2004. And then they rebooted it again in 2005, also with Dan Slott. So we're going to read that one now. The trade version is called Volume 3 Time Trials. And it's the 2005 She-Hulk issues 1 through 5, Dan Slott and Juan Bobillo. And then for our long read with Earth 2 DC superheroes, we're going to do Justice League of America 159. This is a two-parter, 159 through 160. We're just doing 159 for next time. It is a JSA JLA team-up, Justice Society, Justice League.
I'm looking at it now. It's Justice League and Justice Society versus Jonah Hex. All right.
Whoa. This is by Jerry Conway and Dick Dillon. Yeah, I don't know anything about what to expect here, so we'll see what happens there. So yeah, She-Hulk 1 through 5 and JLA 159. This is also from 1978. Yeah, what else we got going on? Chris, how is your Stupid Minds doing?
Well, as I referenced earlier, I think we're probably going to do one more episode in this series, but we just did an episode when we saw the list of things leaving HBO Max, and it was like 100 movies. We picked one of them, Dracula Untold, the origin story of Dracula, where we find out he had a good reason for becoming a vampire. He was the good guy all along. A very stupid movie that we talk about, and we also kind of talk a little bit more about HBO's terrible management and bad screenwriting in general. The screenwriting duo of Dracula Untold also are the people behind Morbius.
Oh, it's Morbin time.
My God, it's Morbin time. All right, Vince, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I saw It's Morbin time. And
did you?
Yeah, it wasn't very good. I did see if you want fast vampires fighting, I watched Day Shift with Jamie Foxx. It's from the it's got action and whatever. Yeah, it's good stuff though. Jamie Foxx beating up vampires with Snoop Dogg. It's delightfully dumb and fun. A good B movie, Netflix. Day Shift.
Very good.
Probably better than Dracula Untold. Maybe not as fun to talk about though.
All right, very good. I'm getting more serious about the planning stages of building the PC here, but then I spend most of my time just playing Yakuza and The Messenger. I'm really liking that game. I beat The Messenger.
Nice.
I don't think I'm gonna play the DLC though.
I just bought the Vampire Survivors or something on your recommendation.
What is that? Have you played it yet?
No, it's like $3 though. It looks like it's like a bullet hell but with vampires.
It's barely got any vampires in it. Don't get too excited about that.
It's still an early
access. It's a weird game. I would say look up Vampire Survivors if you've never heard of it. But it's just like this very simple, almost proof of concept game that like gets wild as hell and just like flashing lights all over the screen. And like, I think I saw a pitch that you become the bullet hell. And it's like, yeah, you just start like shooting out powers everywhere. And it's just like entertaining fun. And for it's like a few bucks.
$3, yeah.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah, and it works on Steam Deck. It's our vampire pitches, our 3 vampire pitches today. All right.
What's my vampire?
Oh, I gave you Vampire Survivors because you pitched it to me a while ago. But
there you go. And you mentioned the day thing. Yeah, 3 vampire pitches. That's great. Well, I think there's nothing else to mention here. Vince, I love you.
Love you too, buddy.
Chris, I love you.
I'm poisoned. I have to leave this body.
I've come to expect this at this point. I mean, he could just regrow himself. Tell me he loves me. I know.
He's skipping town.
All right, guys, I'm in a new body.
Oh, Jiminy Crickets.
Listener, we love you as well. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We will see you next time. Talk to you later. Bye.